Russia-Ukraine war, experts warn of serious and imminent risk of Ukraine genocide, live. Independent report says enough evidence to conclude Russia is inciting genocide. UK PM says Russian troops making slow but palpable progress. Russia guilty of inciting genocide in Ukraine. Expert report. Russian forces close to encircling Sievierodonetsk in the east. Russia cauldron tactic may be tipping Donbas battle in its favor. At a glance, what we know on day 93 of the invasion. Serious and imminent risk of genocide in Ukraine. Report. There is enough evidence to conclude that Russia is inciting genocide in Ukraine and committing atrocities intended to destroy the Ukrainian people, according to the first independent report into allegations of genocide committed by Russian troops. More than 30 leading legal scholars and genocide experts have signed the report accusing the Russian state of violating several articles of the United Nations Genocide Convention. CNN. The report warns there is a serious and imminent risk of genocide in Ukraine, accompanied by a long list of evidence including examples of mass killings of civilians, forced deportations and dehumanizing anti-Ukrainian rhetoric used by top Russia. It directly accuses Russian top officials of orchestrating incitement to genocide and laying the groundwork for future genocide by repeatedly denying the existence of a Ukrainian identity. As examples, the report points to the dehumanizing language used by Russian officials to describe Ukrainians, including words such as bestial, subordinate and filth, or Vladimir Putin's statements that he believes Ukraine has no right to exist as an independent. Azim Ibrahim, a director at the US-based think tank New Lines Institute for Strategy and Policy, which put together the report, said, "What we have seen so far is that this war is genocidal in its nature, in terms of the language being used and the manner in which it is being executed. That's very clear." The experts also accused Russian forces of carrying out a pattern of consistent and pervasive atrocities against Ukrainian civilians collectively in the course of the invasion. It said that 12 documented massacres and summary executions in Bucha, Staroye Bykov, and in Sumy and Chernihiv regions, Russia's deliberate attacks on shelters, evacuation routes and healthcare facilities, as well the indiscriminate targeting and bombardment of residential areas, rapes, sieges, grain thefts and forced deportations to Russia all amount to genocidal. The report calls on the international community to act, warning that there is no time at all. Ibrahim said: "Every country that is a signatory to the Genocide Convention, and that's 151 countries including the Russian Federation, every country has to do whatever it can to put a stop to this, otherwise they will also be in breach of the Zelensky, Russian forces heavily striking Donbas. President Volodymyr Zelensky, speaking in a short video address, said the situation in Donbas is very difficult. He said Russian forces are concentrated in the coastal region of Ukraine and using maximum artillery reserves. Russia announced today that it expects to receive $14 billion in additional energy revenue, reports AFP. Russia's finance minister announced today that the country is set to receive 1 tn rubles in additional oil and gas revenues this year, noting that the additional income will be spent on Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. "We expect to receive up to 1 trillion rubles, $14.4 billion, in additional oil and gas revenues, according to the forecast that we have developed with the Ministry of Economic Development," said Finance Minister Anton Siluanov during remarks that were broadcasted on Russia. Siluanov further clarified that the money will be spent on additional payments to pensioners and families with children, as well as to continue conducting a special operation in Ukraine, referring to Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. The US is expected to send long-range rocket systems to Ukraine that could be announced as early as next week, reports CNN. Following military challenges in eastern Ukraine, U.S. officials have confirmed that the U.S. is prepared to send advanced, long-range missile systems to aid with fighting. The rocket systems, Multiple Launch Rocket System or MLRS, have been a top request of Ukraine officials who say it is necessary to ward off Russia's advancements. The missile systems can fire a stream of rockets many miles further than current Ukraine weaponry, reports the Washington Post. The rocket system could be a part of a larger military package to Ukraine. Karim Khan, the prosecutor for the International Criminal Court, ICC, has called on Russia to cooperate with investigations into alleged war crimes committed in Ukraine, reports. Khan said that Russian officials have refused to work with the ICC amid war crime investigations, but noted that his door is open if Russia wants to assist. The invitation is there. My door is open, and I will also keep knocking on the door of the Russian Federation, said Karim Khan in an AFP. And if there are allegations that the Russian Federation have, if there's information that they have, if they are conducting their own investigations or prosecutions or have information that's relevant, share it with us, Khan added. Russia and Ukraine are not members of the ICC, but Ukraine has cooperated with Khan's office during their investigation and accepted the court's jurisdiction. While Khan noted that any war crime perpetrators would be brought to justice, the prosecutor refused to confirm if Vladimir Putin could be named a suspect given his involvement in Russia's invasion of Ukraine. U.S. President Joe Biden accused Vladimir Putin of attempting to wipe out Ukrainian culture and identity during a speech today, reports the Washington Post. During a commencement speech to the U.S. Naval Academy's graduating class today, Biden said that Putin was trying to wipe out the culture and identity of the Ukrainian people. Biden further criticized Russia's attack on Ukraine hospitals, schools and other civilian buildings. Biden also said that Putin inadvertently NATOized all of Europe after Sweden and Finland sought out membership in the alliance following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Ma Yang. The United Nations Human Rights Office of the High Commissioner, OCHR, has released the latest figures on the Ukraine war's human toll. The latest UN figures show that from 24 February to 26 May, 4,031 civilians died during Russia's invasion of Ukraine due to shelling and airstrikes, including 260. A total 4,735 civilians were injured. The OCHR estimates that the actual toll of the invasion is much higher than provided estimates. From BuzzFeed News, Christopher Miller. Most of the civilian casualties recorded were caused by the use of explosive weapons with a wide impact area, including shelling from heavy artillery and multiple launch rocket systems, and missile and air strikes, the OCHR said in a statement, referring to the new figures. OCHR believes that the actual figures are considerably higher, as the receipt of information from some locations where intense hostilities have been going on has been delayed and many reports are still pending corroboration. Ukraine's Moscow-backed Orthodox Church said today that it was cutting ties with Russia over its invasion of Ukraine, reports AFP. The church declared full independence from Russia in a move that defied Russia's spiritual authorities. We disagree with the position of Patriarch Kirill of Moscow on the war, said the church, referring to the head of the Russian Orthodox Church who is also a close ally of Vladimir Putin. The council condemns war as a violation of God's commandment "You shall not kill" and expresses condolences to all those who suffered in the war, said the church following a council meeting focused on Russia's aggression where the Ukraine Orthodox Church declared full autonomy. The Moscow branch of the Ukraine's Orthodox Church was previously fully aligned with Patriarch Kirill, who expressed his support of Putin and the invasion of Ukraine. Ukrainian forces may be forced to retreat from the final pocket of resistance in the eastern region of Luhansk to avoid being captured, the regional governor, Serhiy Gaidai, said. In a post on Telegram, Gaidai referred to the near-surrounded cities of Sievierodonetsk and Lysychansk, writing, "The Russians will not be able to capture Luhansk region in the coming days as analysts have predicted." He added, "We will have enough strength and resources to defend ourselves. However, it is possible that in order not to be surrounded we will have to retreat." Russia planning full-scale victory in Ukraine by autumn. Report. The Kremlin is considering a second assault on Kyiv despite failing to capture the Ukrainian capital at the outset of the war, according to the independent news website. Sources close to the Kremlin and inside the Putin administration said confidence has spread to the leadership of United Russia, the country's ruling political party, that a full-scale victory in Ukraine is possible before the end. One source said: "We'll grind them, the Ukrainians, down in the end. The whole thing will probably be over by the fall." Russia's leadership has minimum and maximum thresholds for declaring a successful and completed special military operation in Ukraine, sources said. The bare minimum needed to declare victory is the complete capture of the Donbas region, according to sources, while the maximum goal would be the capture of Kyiv. The editor of the English-language edition of Meduza, Kevin Rothrock, said the report suggests that Ukraine is losing the information war for the first time since the invasion. Kremlin officials are also skeptical that Western countries can sustain their massive financial and military support to Ukraine if the war drags on, the website reports. Another source said: "Sooner or later, Europe will tire of helping. This is both money and arms production that they need for themselves. Closer to the fall, they'll have to negotiate with Russia on gas and oil before the cold season arrives." It has not been possible to independently verify this information. Putin prepared to discuss prisoner swap with Ukraine, says Austria. Austria's Chancellor, Karl Nehammer, said Vladimir Putin told him that Moscow was ready to discuss a prisoner swap with Ukraine and that there should be progress on the matter. During the 45-minute call between the two leaders, the Russian president had expressed readiness to discuss a prisoner swap with Ukraine, Nehammer told reporters. Nehammer said: "The Russian president has assured us that the International Red Cross must and should have access to the prisoners of war. Of course, he is also demanding access to Russian prisoners of war in Ukraine." He added. If he is really ready to negotiate is a complex question. In a separate statement, the Kremlin said Putin had accused Ukraine of sabotaging talks with Moscow during his call with the Austrian Chancellor. Putin also informed Nehammer that attempts to blame Russia for difficulties in shipping grain worldwide were groundless, pointing instead to Western sanctions. The Kremlin said. Nehammer said the Russian president had given signals that he is quite willing to allow exports via the seaports, adding, "The real willingness will only become apparent when it is actually implemented."